Welcome to another edition of Driven to Lead. I'm your host, Wayne Brannon. In this program, we explore the real stories from key executives to find the leadership lessons that drove their success, whether in good times or bad. We got a great program for you today, so let's make it happen. All right, what a pleasure it is to have with us today Kathryn Schifferle. Kathryn's the founder and chief vision officer for Work Truck Solutions out of Chico, California. Kathryn, welcome to the program.
Very nice to be here, Wayne. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, it's really great to have you. I guess you've always wanted to be in the truck business with a great truck solutions company like you have.
I guess I'm what's called a gearhead. I had my license when I was 15 and a half. My first vehicle was a 49 Dodge pickup that I had to double clutch. I own a convertible Mustang with that's a manual. I like
Yeah.
vehicles. But I never expected that I would be in this space. That's for sure.
Right. I think you told me when we chatted earlier that you've always been a serial entrepreneur. So it's
Yes.
probably not surprising that you ended up starting a business at some point, right?
I've had about seven businesses, but this one kind of came out of a pause time, and a friend asked me if I would help. So it was very different.
Mm-hmm.
Most of the
Mm-hmm.
time entrepreneurs are like all geared up to bring what they've got. And this time it was
Right.
more about helping other people.
Yeah, well, helping other people is a great way to think about the value we can add as executives in anything that we do.
Right.
So you've also been a professor, or maybe you still are. You do B2B marketing. Is that
So
a
that
lane?
was the pause. I
Yeah,
between my last company and Work Truck, I had started teaching. And yes, I was teaching marketing. Turned out I really loved that
hmm,
and entrepreneurship. And I did build a B2B marketing class because as much as I was willing to teach intro to marketing, I've always
right.
been passionate about B2B, not about consumer stuff.
Yeah, well, that's really consistent with what you're doing right now as well.
Exactly.
Tell us about how Work Truck Solutions got started, and for our audience, it'd be nice to know what does Work Truck Solutions do because it's really a unique solution that filled an important gap in the industry.
Yeah, and I'll tell you the discovery of that problem. A friend had asked
Hmm.
me to help a guy who was starting what's known as a truck club for people selling at Ford dealerships for selling commercial vehicles because it's a separate department and it's a separate customer. It's businesses.
Right, right,
And he wanted to start a national one. And I started publishing Ford Pros magazine with him. And then I basically ended up running the National Association. And I fell in love with this space. Hardworking, salt of the earth, backbone of the US economy. And they would tell me anything.
right,
And so the supply chain people, the upfitters, the end customers, the vocational plumbers and air conditioners and
right.
landscapers, all of that just hit for me. And
Mhm.
about a couple years into that, I discovered a problem, which was that you know what a VIN is, obviously, Wayne. The VIN is assigned to the vehicle, but it's not finished yet. It still needs to have whatever the body on it added that is the function of that vehicle. And what I
Right.
found out was that nobody anywhere was keeping track of that.
Yeah,
I mean,
just for the audience, the VIN is the vehicle identification number that comes from the manufacturer of the vehicle. But sometimes those vehicles are not a complete vehicle. They might be a cab and a chassis or some other configuration that something else gets built onto, whether it's an ambulance or whether it's a dump truck or whether it's a water tank or fuel tank or whatever that might be. So there was a gap, what you're saying, between the information that went along with that vehicle identification number and what that vehicle had actually become, and as it might be available in inventory for the people who use those trucks to find and buy the right vehicle,
well,
right?
they couldn't find it because there was no
Exactly.
data and they couldn't search
Right.
for it. So that was the problem that I spent 3 years trying to figure out if someone else was solving this big problem for a $130 billion industry. And when
Right.
they weren't, I said, well, okay, I guess I'm starting another company. And it's been a journey of uh, the this part of the industry is very old school. When I
Mhm.
started, all the people selling had flip phones and didn't know how to do email. Their grandkids encouraged them to get texting, right? It was
Mm.
a very long path up to adoption of
And
technology.
this was just 12 years ago, right?
That's right. We launched our
Yeah.
first dealer at the end of 2012.
Okay. So in that time, you needed to really bring quite a bit of technology, I expect, to aggregate the data and be able to present this data in a usable form to all of the people who'd be searching for vehicles.
On the one hand, we had data, on the other, I mean, technology and experience in
Mhm.
that because I'm a software entrepreneur. On the other hand, I could tell that what was really important was holding people's hands and helping them understand that the journey
Sure.
was valuable to them, right? That
Right.
there was a reason why being able to find the vehicle for a particular customer and show it to them was important in moving along their opportunities.
Yeah, well, that's a tremendous thing. I mean, filling a need like that after the business had been around for, 60, 70 years more or more,
Yes.
and then identifying the problem and filling the need, and then taking the right amount of technology to the users. That's a great accomplishment. And it's no wonder that Automotive News has recognized you as one of the 100 leading women in the auto industry now. So going from in 12 years from where you started to where you are now, I mean, big congrats. I mean, that's really a great story in and of itself.
Well, thank you. One of my favorite stories is 3 months after we launched our first dealer, which is in Northern California. I called the general manager and I said, Francis, have you ever stocked a dump truck? And he said, I've been in this business for 35 years and I've never sold a dump truck. And our software has these little wireframes at the top of the
Hmm.
listings where you can scroll and click on a picture of something.
Yeah,
And I
sure.
said, well, guess what? Dump trucks are the second and third most frequently searched, clicked thing. And he went,
Yeah.
really? He went and he
Oh
bought one
my,
and he sold it like immediately. And he's grown
yeah,
his business because he learned that. And I love that. I get chills when I think about, just bringing technology
sure.
that simple to help.
Yeah, very simple. Yeah. It's like in the industry, we were always, defining the option packages and the content load for the pricing and the delivery to customers to try to satisfy the
Right.
need in the appropriate way. And so dealers could have the right inventory. This was without upfitting, just in the standard way. And, I always felt like we were looking in the rear view mirror to make these packages available because we were looking at the way the vehicles had been configured in the past. And
Yes.
it's great data, but guess what? Sometimes it was just the way that the dealer
Mhm.
network had decided to order them, right? Because we're not
Yep.
a build to order model in this country as much as we're built to stock, right?
Yep.
So when we think about it, if you're only looking at what was there, or in this case, this gentleman was looking at things he'd already or always sold and didn't consider other things. If you look at some other data, it'll really inform you about what might be a big sales opportunity, as the case that you just described.
Well, even beyond that, what I get excited about is that no one had ever kind of mapped the configurations to the NAICS or SIC codes, the business
Hmm.
categories. And
Right.
so we've done that over time too, where we've said,
Yeah.
well, plumbers really, these are the kinds of vehicles plumbers really use. So if you're going to talk to plumbers, maybe you should talk to them about these kinds of vehicles. And here are the features that the plumbers
Hmm.
themselves need. I remember the first time I saw at a manufacturing, at an upfitter's manufacturing, there was a little hook on the back of the right-hand side of the upfit. And I said, well, what is that hook
Hmm.
for? He said, oh, well, there's one on the front too. That's to carry 100-foot long pipe.
Right.
I'm like, oh my God, how would anybody know this if you weren't telling them? So anyway, I love what I'm doing and how I'm
You're
helping.
learning with your clients as it goes. I,
Yes.
I, I love that too.
Yeah.
So, Kathryn, as you know, this program is about trying to find the key leadership lessons
Hmm.
in the stories of key executives like yourself. So, be great to hear from you about, a major challenge or an opportunity to grab, share, or grow your business, be really interesting for us to hear, the stories that you think are most representative of some things that we all need to be aware of in our leadership journey.
So, for me, like I've had, because I've had other companies, I had to stop and think before I started a new one about what I've learned. And because I made
Right.
lots of mistakes. And unfortunately, Wayne, some of them more than once. Um,
We've
and
all made them, so it's okay.
but more than once, come on, I
This
shouldn't
is
have
a
done
safe space. It's all right.
that. So I said, what are the three most important things to me?
Uh-huh.
And so I'll go through them real quick. But one of them's the answer. So rule one was, I'm sorry, no bad people. I can use that term. Jerks. Okay, I'll use
Yeah.
jerks. No,
No
none of them.
slugs.
Huh?
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
Number two was learning how to delegate. I kind of called myself on the carpet and said, delegation isn't about, just telling people how to do things. It's finding really smart people, being on the same page as far as what the goal is, and then letting them do it their way. And that was a huge leadership step for me
Hmm.
because
Hmm.
before that, I was kidding myself that I was delegating.
Sure.
The third thing was I wanted to build a culture from scratch. The fact that I was starting a new company meant that I could design a culture that was going to be a place, you used the word safe place, a safe place
Hmm.
where it was transparent, where people could collaborate, where people could be appreciative of each other, where everything was about, enjoying coming to work as opposed to anything else, where good ideas could come from anybody in the company. And
Hmm.
I have to tell you, Wayne, for all the stuff that's happened, and I appreciate the award last week and all that kind of stuff. But for me, the thing I'm the most proud of is that we have created this culture in the company. There are people waiting to join our company because they've seen how no people don't leave because, or if they have, a lot of times they've come back because it's just a
Hmm.
place where you enjoy going to work every day. And I go, why not? And I have to admit, we're talking about leadership, and I've met two what I would call, service leaders, right?
Right.
I maybe it's a bad word nowadays, but
Hmm.
Alan Mullally, and of course, I mentioned to you that Jim Press is my senior advisor. But these are
Right.
people that, that's what they serve for the as a leader, and I believe that.
Sure.
I think that that's what a
Right.
leader is there for. It's to
Mhm.
set goals, but then to help everybody, to
Right.
achieve them for them personally and for the
Hmm.
company. And I don't understand why I've thought about, going to Harvard and writing a paper, but it's so much, we're three times as efficient, as effective and quality because everybody cares. And so for
Yeah.
me, that's what's been that's the importance of leadership. And my
Yeah.
personality is very different than the person that I've moved into the CEO role, but we
Hmm.
both agree on the culture. We lead
Hmm.
differently
Good.
because of our
Good.
personalities are being different, but we believe in a culture that works.
So the three principles, just to replay them back, so we got it. You want to make sure you got the right people on board. You,
Yep,
you stated it as you want to make sure you get the wrong people off the ship, right? So you
correct.
get the right people on board, and then make sure you find smart people who you can create strategic alignment with them, and
Yep.
then delegate the authority to let them do the work they need to do.
The
And
way
then
that they would naturally
the,
do it. Yes.
the way that they would naturally do it. And then thirdly, you have a culture of collaboration
Yes.
and mutual human respect that makes it a great place to work.
And I think the last one, it continued to evolve. At 5 years, up to 5 years, I was doing a lot of the work to keep the culture, remind everybody. And then the
Hmm.
company started owning the culture, and
Yeah,
it's
that's what you need.
continued
Yeah.
to grow that way. But about somewhere in between 5 and 10 years, there was another important thing about our culture personality which was iteration.
Hmm.
And that is one of those things that can be very difficult for people to commit to wake up every morning having learned something new and be willing to evolve and change. And
Hmm.
that is now a very important part of our culture. And I think that that refined the who fit, right?
Hmm.
So,
Yeah, so you have to evolve with the company to kind of
yeah.
align your values and your
But the
beliefs.
benefit is that you can continue to evolve, and we support
Yeah,
that as well too.
right. Yeah, that's great. So, does anybody ever challenge you that you've kind of gotten off base with the culture, that you're violating yourself? Are they comfortable to do that?
I think when they see something,
Yeah, they don't like.
they're not afraid to say it. In
Good.
fact, one of the guys that was recently from a bigger company, bigger than us, we're about 120 people now, and came out of his first meeting, and I said, "So how did it go, Robert?" And he said, "It was really weird." And I go, "What do you mean?" And he goes, "Well, everybody was talking and almost kind of arguing and explaining, and at the end, we all figured out what we were going to do." He said, "I've never been in a meeting like that before."
Well, I guess the fact that people are willing to stand up and talk about the things they're concerned about in an open and honest way is really an indication that the collaborative environment that you're trying to create
Right.
actually exists, right? That's great.
Yep.
So, all right, tell us a story about how you've taken this company. I think we have a good vision of the functional, role of the company and now the culture and the belief system of the leadership team. So, there must have been times when all of those things were challenged as you've been building and growing. There must have been a major hurdle you've had to overcome, or a story about, how you moved ahead in the marketplace, brought on new partners, something that would kind of exemplify why these leadership principles were so important.
Well, I think having something really foundational inside of you, like when I started the company, it wasn't that I just wanted to serve dealers. It was I had this vision of serving an industry, of stakeholders who, like I said, hardworking and that whole thing,
Mhm.
right? So there was an anchor for me. But COVID, obviously, when COVID happened, two things. We had an office and we had a few people that were remote, but not that many. And in March, we went 100% virtual. And
Mhm.
of course, and we're a software company. So what we did is we maximized the benefit of that. And it meant that people could live where they wanted to live. They could kind of coordinate their schedule to some degree around
Mhm.
how they wanted to live. They wanted to
Right.
be able to take their dog for a walk in the middle of twice a day, or they had kids they had to pick up from school.
Sure.
It became a way that we could really support individualized lifestyles. And and then like literally the next day, I woke up and I went, "Oh my gosh, there isn't going to be any inventory next year."
Mm.
We are an inventory listing company.
Yeah,
Uh-oh,
basically.
we need
Hmm.
to have something, bring something to the game that is going to be helping so that dealers understand, because we'd become important to the dealers, obviously. And so
Hmm.
in early 21, we launched vehicle acquisition search tool, which is we were bringing in remarketed inventory, but parsing it into only commercial vehicles,
Hmm.
making it searchable so that the dealers who no longer had new vehicles for their
Hmm.
businesses who were
Right.
desperate could
Right.
find inventory that maybe that business would have never bought a used inventory before, but they had to have
Right.
something to get the work done because
Sure.
they were still working during,
Right.
you know.
Right.
And then by mid-year, we launched easy order, because that was the other thing we saw was a problem, is that people were so used to being able to come to the lot and say, "That's the one I would like," or "I'd like one like that and I have time to order it," that we needed to train the buyers that that
Yeah.
couldn't be that way anymore, and they needed to think ahead. And so we built
Hmm.
easy order. And then on top of that, by the end of the year, we built what we call commercial vehicle showroom, which is like a digital catalog. So it
Okay.
helped. So we really, I feel very proud that in a tough environment, I mean, we were very
Yeah.
flat that year. We didn't increase revenue. We did a lot of
Mm.
free stuff for dealers because
Yeah.
there were dealers that were like really behind the eight ball, right?
Hmm.
But we were able to continue to do what I really wanted to do was help them understand that we are their partners, that, that's what we're there for.
Yeah, good for you. So you innovated and pivoted like a lot of companies had to
Right.
pivot during the COVID experience. You were pivoting and innovating during a difficult time. And while it didn't increase your revenue, I expect it had that in that time. I expected since increased your revenue
Mhm.
and it certainly must have drawn your relationship to the dealers closer because you were fulfilling
Yes.
a need
I
that
do think it changed how they perceived us.
right.
We had also launched our own national marketplace. So we power GMC, Chevrolet, GM Involve, um, Ram
Mhm.
Trucks, Stellantis Fleet, and FordPros.com. We power their tier one site searches for commercial.
No,
But
great.
in November of 2019, we launched Convoy.com. That's COMVOY.com, which
Mhm.
is our national marketplace. So there's about 250,000 vehicles there right now that nationally people, small to medium businesses can go and search and
Right.
find and learn stuff too.
Right.
And
Sure.
and of course it was just before COVID, so it had very good timing. So that was another thing that we iterated on during that period of that, 21, 22, 23, to kind of figure out how to help dealers um, get better at selling unique vehicles by target, which wouldn't necessarily just be geography. So that
Right.
was another
Right.
thing that I was proud of. That definitely
Yeah.
continued, and we're still doing things around that.
Yeah, that's a significant change in the way the industry operates, right? You have to source from broader geographies, even though these are vehicles that typically don't get shipped long distances. So was there an infrastructure and a logistics play on the backside of that that you needed to work within as well to get these
We did
vehicles
find a
actually
partner, a
shipped to the right
shipping
place?
partner that was
Got it.
experienced in shipping these weirdly shaped vehicles.
Right. Right.
Um, but I'll tell you, Wayne, it was really interesting because in 2019, 18, 19, sixty
Hmm.
percent of all commercial vehicles were already being purchased sight unseen because the purpose was, I mean, they're
Right.
white, right? And I need
Yeah.
this, and I need this, and I need this. And
Hmm.
so we really have a lot of faith that as we continue to evolve technology, that we can pull a lot of the inefficiencies out of that process here. Because it just
Yeah.
makes sense for businesses.
Now, do you have a team that's focused explicitly on looking for the next thing and looking for the opportunities for innovation? Because, given as many things as you've found and solved, I'll bet you there's a few more that haven't been found yet.
So Vision is my middle name, right? But we did just hire a phenomenal chief product officer.
Okay.
His name is Alex Young. He spent a dozen years with TrueCar. So talk
Okay.
about innovation and stuff. And then he spent
Hmm.
for somewhere around 4 or 5 years in e-commerce. And so
Hmm.
yes, we have
Okay.
three major areas. Obviously, Convoy. I'm working on some supply chain stuff and bailment pool stuff, and
Yeah.
also kind of like the better workflow for the dealers because right now the retail stuff, desking
Right.
and all of that. I mean, did you know that a
Yeah.
dealer for commercial, when a customer wants to buy five vehicles, they have to run it through five things? Have to anyway.
No,
It's
I didn't know that.
yeah, it's not very efficient.
So, yeah, so you could create perhaps some um, retail enabled software to make the sale process easier
Right.
for commercial vehicles. All right, well, that's interesting. I didn't know that that didn't exist. Surprising. So, what was the biggest challenge of all these years, 12 years? What was the biggest challenge you faced, would you say? With
Hmm.
people, with the business, with the software, with the customers?
You know, I have, I am experienced. So I've had, my other companies, there's always been some huge thing, right?
Hmm.
I have to say, Wayne, it's been very balanced. There's been the cycle of life, you know,
Hmm.
pre-COVID, COVID, post-COVID, tariffs, even 2008 and 9, I was touching
Right.
on that period. There's that, but to me, those invigorate me because when something starts happening like that, my first reaction is, where's the lemonade? Like there's some
Hmm.
place that we can do something to help. And so I have to say it's been a wonderful journey. I can't point to one thing. I'm
So I like the way you said that. So the time has flown by because there's been so many, even in 12 years, there's been so many separate seasons. Each of them have their own challenge.
Yep.
And by making lemonade with the lemons, what you're saying is that you're looking for the opportunity in every one of these challenges.
And we have the team and the company, and I mean,
Right.
that's the whole reason we can keep doing it, right?
Right. And you
Yeah.
got the culture that now is
Yes.
kind of really in line with that thinking.
Yes.
Yeah, that's fantastic. So how do you stay current? It's difficult these days with all of the technology that's coming our way and with the changes in the industry, like with the struggles that the auto industry is, kind of working through right now, the transformation to electric vehicles, the transformation to electric and the commercial space is going to happen. It is happening maybe at a different pace. The tariffs and the effect on pricing, how will that
Yep.
affect all the businesses? There's always something, but how do you stay current and stay on top of what that next phase would be, the next thing for Work Truck Solutions?
So we use Slack. I don't know if you're familiar with it, but it's
Yeah,
a tech,
sure.
yeah.
Collaboration tool. Yeah.
It is. And
Uh-huh.
so we have channels where we report
Mm,
things we hear.
yeah.
We have a channel where we report news. We even
Hmm.
have a channel that I instigated about a year ago called environmental scanning, which is a
Mm,
technique in
hmm.
marketing where you're
Yeah.
actually looking at the 5 categories of things you have no control over, your
Yeah.
competitors, the
Hmm.
economy,
Correct.
technology, trends, and the
Yeah.
regulatory, right? And you look at them
Hmm.
all and you have to just keep it's a process. You have to stay on top of things. And I
Right.
personally dig into technology as much as I can, even though I've been
Right.
I may not look like I would be a person that would do that. We won't make any comments back and forth. But since I've had software companies for a long time,
Yeah.
since the beginning of software,
Yeah.
I find that it's important because you got to keep your brain working.
Right. Well, there's my current phone behind me, so you can see how technology savvy I am.
I love it. Yeah. Oh, it's a dial. I remember the
Yeah.
day my daughter said, one of my daughters said, "But how
Right.
do you push the buttons?"
Yeah, exactly. It's funny because it's a dial phone. One of my nieces or nephews a few years back asked, Uncle Wayne, how do you use that thing? And so,
Yeah.
it's second nature for those of us who grew up with it. But technology has changed a lot in our lifetimes, Catherine. I
Yes.
mean, it's been amazing. So, this is the point in the program where I ask the same two questions of every guest as we wrap up. You know, you've been through a lot. You've had, it sounds like a great career. You got a great future ahead as well. But if you could, at this point, with the things the leadership principles that you've shared with us today, what would you tell your younger self if you had an opportunity to go back 25 years and kind of give yourself just one piece of advice?
You warned me you were going to do this, so I've been thinking a lot about it. I don't
Good.
really have a lot, but there is one
Yeah.
thing that I made a big mistake on, and that
Mm,
was believing for some reason that somebody being smart and skilled was more important than them being a good person. And
mm,
I that was one of my bigger mistakes where I had
mhm.
somebody that in the company that was not a good person. And I should have um, stepped forward. I should have resolved it.
Yeah.
But because they were really smart, because they knew stuff I didn't know, it's that fascination of intellect. That's my downfall. Other than that, maybe get a little more sleep.
Yeah, that's always good advice. I've run into many, many super intelligent people in my career across, 80 countries and 40 plus years of business. And, the smart people are always valuable. They are, but not all of them have the values that you have or have the sense of culture that you've described as part of your business. So I hear you. I think that's very good advice to give ourselves to look at people's character as part of the whole package, as a critical part. If the character's not there, it doesn't matter how
Yeah.
smart they are, it just makes them more dangerous,
Yes,
right? Yeah,
absolutely.
yeah,
Absolutely.
yeah. All
Um,
right. Second question I
yep.
ask everybody is, let's imagine that you and I are sitting at the beach, uh, looking at a sunset, reflecting on how our careers and our lives have gone. And we're talking about the things we talked about today, the good and the bad, the ugly. What will you be most proud of, do you think, when it's all over and you kind of step down from your position at Work Truck Solutions?
Well, I know we've already talked about culture, and
Yes.
that's a broad thing, but I think right now what I'm doing, which is really important, and I am pleased to be doing it, is more direct mentoring.
Hmm.
I've got a few mentees that I specifically meet with, but in our company, and of course, I'm a girl, right? So there's been a lot of things around being a female in the different industries that I've been in that have been challenging, but I believe that the best way to overcome a challenge is to overcome it, not whine about it, and to help others. And so I also have we have an amazing group of women in Work Truck Solutions as well. And so I've done a few things. I've got another kind of series of webinars that I'm doing, and then generationally, Tuesday, I did a 30-minute webinar, and I have another one next Tuesday on making phone calls, because 81% of uh, of millennials and 90 something percent of Gen Z are not comfortable. They have this whole thing about the phone and making phone calls. And I did a whole bunch of research on it, and it taught me so much. That's part of what I like. I love learning stuff. And so I
Yeah,
get to learn stuff, and then I get to come in and kind of use my experience and my ability in communicating to help them understand stuff beyond what they could just learn by working. And so I'm really
yeah.
enjoying that. I think that I'd
Good
like
for
to do
you.
more of that.
That's something to be proud of for sure. I'm a business consultant and an executive coach, and both are important for sure. But the thing I enjoy the most, and the thing I think I will be most proud of at the end of my career, is the coaching piece. Because
Yeah.
when you're mentoring and you're coaching, you're basically just caring as much as you can about the success of the person you're
Yeah.
with. And sometimes you need to give them some tough love. Sometimes you just need to inspire and encourage them. But all the time, you need to just make sure they have a path that they're going down that's going to lead them to
Mhm.
greater and greater success. I like to say moving toward the highest expression of themselves. So
And I
good for
think
you.
enjoying that journey too. It was actually funny last night with, like, my oldest granddaughter graduated, and the valedictorian at a very small school, young man said, reminded me that, it's great to have goals. It's great to be
Yeah,
going somewhere, but don't forget that the journey is what you spend most of your time on.
right.
And so helping each other is a wonderful way to make the journey good too.
Yeah, it absolutely is. Well, I'd just like to thank you, Kathryn, for sharing your journey with us today. It's been insightful and inspirational in many different ways. I'm sure for the folks who will be listening to this, either via YouTube or podcast, are going to be very happy that they took the time to
Mhm.
listen to your story. So thanks for being with us. It was a real treat for me, and I look forward to staying in touch with you.
Absolutely. I've really enjoyed meeting you, Wayne. I'm looking forward to
Thanks.
our continued journey.
Yeah, all the best and God bless.
Thanks.
Well, that's it for today. Thanks for being with us. If you like our conversations, please feel free to hit the subscribe and like buttons. And if you'd like to make comments, ask questions, or even explore being a guest on this program, you can reach out to us via email. It's Wayne at greatroad.com. That's WAYNE at GR8ROAD.com. And until next time, always remember, the high road leads to a better place.